lit. This is episode 1 of Collective Verity's podcast, Truth or Truth. I am 1/5 of the collective, Dewan Bland. To my left, we at.
Danny Unspoken. What up, y'all?
And to her left, we got.
Corzetta Renee.
And to her left, we got.
We got Do Fate, Syria.
And to his left, we got.
Brittany Sharice.
All right, so this is episode 1 of our podcast. We just figured we might as well do this because we have man, we got a platform, so we can do whatever we want to. So, let me be honest.
He speaks for 1/5 of the collective, that being him.
Trying to get this money, man.
Disclaimer.
Give money.
Dewan only speaks for himself.
He speak for me too. I believe in you, brother.
Nah,
I
I'm trying to
believe
get
in
this
you
money.
too. Let's get this back.
Okay,
All right.
blind leading the blind.
As long as we get okay, I'm gonna
It
say
was
this.
almost millions.
All right, so a segue into our next conversation that we wanted to have. So the collective is a group of Christians.
Wait, is it a segue if you call it the segue?
Yeah,
I'm calling it out.
All right.
So the
I thought that just happened naturally. My bad.
man, dang, they'll never want to respect my journalism degree. Broadcast journalism.
I thought it was
Always
communications.
want to bring up their degree.
Man, I'm 90,000 in debt for this degree.
Whoa!
Come on, King.
Did you get your doctorate?
Hey, I'm 80, bro. I'm right there with you. With a bachelor's. This
I'm a
rough
devil
out
this
here.
day. There's no way
That's
no way out. You got jumped into that.
I'm going to pay them $5 a month for the rest
Listen,
of my
they
life.
had the nurse to call me like, you have a balance of $72,000. Can you pay that today?
You want
What
cash or
degrees
credit?
in criminal justice? What do you mean can I pay it today?
You want the last 3? My card, the little numbers on the back. I got
Security
You
code.
can
got
try
6
it.
on it this month. All right, so the collective is a group of Christians, right? Allegedly.
Wait.
Excuse me, I am saved. I'm sorry, I'm eating fries, y'all.
So the collective is a group of Christians, and although we have very overtly Christian art, I don't think we would say that all of our art is Christian. So I know since
I disagree.
okay,
I feel like it's a difference between a poet that does Christian poems and a Christian that does poetry. So I feel like as a Christian, our job is to meet a need. Like, just real talk, not being churchy, y'all, since I know a lot of people think I am. But if you think about it, like every time Jesus went out, like it was multitudes, he met a need and then he ministered. He met a need and he ministered. So like if we are talking about mental health, like who better to refer somebody to than a mind regulator? Not saying you shouldn't get counseling if you need it or therapy, but there's also an answer for you outside of like doing your normal things. So I think that it makes us more so Christian poets because we tap on other things. Because Jesus was never in the church preaching to the people; he went to where they were. So,
oh no, I definitely agree with that point. I mean that's how I look at it, but I'm talking about like as far as genre. I feel like there's certain poems that we have that, although I think all of our writing is informed by our faith, but I think it's certain poems that we have that people will listen to it and say, this isn't a Christian poem as far as the genre goes. And then I guess the conversation is, as Christian artists, like how expansive do we feel like we can be with our art? What's the limits? And do we feel like we have to have that altar call in the pieces?
I feel like you can be as expansive. We need to be as expansive as we can, because just like Corzetta said, when Jesus went out, you don't see Jesus preaching to the Pharisees. You see Jesus talking to Zacchaeus and talking to the blind man and talking to people who had a need. So even when we do poetry, for example, Catch 22, that hits on veterans, those are often forgotten members of society. And so when you do a piece like that doesn't necessarily have verbatim scripture in it like some of our pieces do, you're still ministering, you're still meeting a need. And so I think that being expansive is a major key in being a Christian artist. Like you said, like as a Christian, you have to hit on those topics, whether you do it verbatim, churchy, or however you do it. It's so important. Even love, like even my love piece that I just wrote for the last love show, that still encompass my walk with Christ, because that's a journey that I took. Whether I said it in a certain way or not, we're still hitting topics that people need to hear, because people have lost hope on love. People don't think that they're going to get that spouse. People don't think that that they have a chance at love. Or even when we talk about mental health, people don't think that there's a way out. And when we tell our stories, then that gives them hope.
Yeah, I feel like personally, we're not, as Christians, as a lot of Christians. I'm surrounded by a lot of people that hit and touch on a lot of different things, but I feel like we almost put ourselves in this bubble, so it makes us untouchable. And we can't reach people if we're not touchable. So for me, yeah, I'm not scared to talk about abortion. I'm not scared to talk about suicide. And what I realize is that my viewpoint of suicide or abortion or any subject might not necessarily line up with what people call Christian. For example, suicide. For me, to not give too much away and some stuff I'm working on, like I feel like we focus too much on the person that died, and we don't focus enough on the why. So everybody deals with, and then they're like, oh well, you should have been there before, but no, what triggered the trigger to want to die? Like you got to look at that, and so sometimes like that trigger points back to you. Like I'm a very sarcastic person, and before I was saved, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Like that tongue being a sword, and
Before you were saved.
be, see what happens when you have group therapy. Like your therapist not supposed to talk about what you talk about in therapy, but it be your own collective.
None of us licensed in therapy yet.
But for real, I was happy. Like, look, I know I can say something to somebody that'll mess them up for the next 5 years of their life. That's terrible. But now, like, that I'm saved, I'm like, if I could use that for evil, I could use that for good. So I just feel like, I don't feel like we need to think outside the box. I think that the box needs to not exist. Just because once you actually give, like, space to something, then you still operate around it. But, you know what I'm saying?
For sure. So I think the box exists even in the way we compare stuff. Like,
You gotta relax.
Terrible.
see, this
I hope
why
y'all
we
didn't catch it.
nah, this why we ain't a visual podcast.
Right?
We're too
Not
hip.
yet.
You know, like just us saying that, like the fact that people know that we're Christians and we do poetry. When we first came out, everybody asked us like, "Oh, so y'all like the poets and all?" Like, no, two completely different shows. Shout out to them in their show. Two completely different shows. Two completely completely different types of content.
I'm too cold.
To be a poet in autumn.
Can we edit that out?
Edit point at 41:10. Okay. But yeah, no, like so when you say you're Christian, people expect a certain content for you. People expect a certain limit. Let's get into that. What is the limit that we have that we can't get to?
I feel like this though. Like, I'm sorry. I don't want to Charles Barkley y'all, but
Shout out to Charles.
You got one more time, Chuck. You got one more time.
it's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, not 1, 2, 1.
Stupid.
So here's the thing. I have a good friend that was like my poetry mentor. And it wasn't in church or anything. It was when I was at EMU. Shout out to EMU Poetry Society. But he said when he switched over, because back then when I first started, it was like poetry is a place where you don't censor yourself at all. So that meant you could be raunchy, you cuss, you say whatever you want. But when he transitioned, because he was trying to reach a wider audience, he was like, if I can't say what I need to say and reach people without cursing, or I can only do it when I'm being vulgar, like this is the only community that I can actually reach or say something too. And he was like, he noticed when he took all of that stuff out of his poetry, he got more engagements. Now, it's not necessarily about that, but for me, I feel like as long as I could talk about sex. Now, I don't have to talk all raunchy about it,
And
but
you've talked about sex in collective poems.
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
But I feel like
Loving me.
I feel like it's something that God created. So in the right parameters, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm in the right parameters, so I know it's a beautiful thing. Shout out to Jody. Hey, babe, wherever you at. But I feel like, no, my only limits for myself is that I'm not going to be cussing. I'm not going to say anything that goes against God and what I believe. And I'm probably not going to be raunchy unless it's something that I'm writing just for my husband for like an anniversary or something. And nobody will ever hear it, probably. But that's just for me. Other than that, I feel like it's okay for me to respectfully talk about other things. And it's no different than me going to God in prayer about certain things. You know what I mean? So, to gain wisdom or whatever. So that's just my only limit.
I think I'm a Christian.
You think?
You know what I'm saying? You
Got a
gotta-
whole piece called
I'm a Christian.
I feel that I am a Christian, but you gotta.
Oh,
my mic.
The mic is just.
Oh,
Yeah,
my fault.
that's what it is.
I gotta. I'm a Christian, so I feel like you always gotta test yourself. You gotta test yourself by the word to make sure that you are a Christian. Like these things, like loving,
That's Bible.
all these things. So I never just assume because I don't want to be up there and he'd be like, I never knew you'd be away from me, work of iniquity.
Gotcha.
But
gotcha.
hey, that's here nor there. But I feel like I'm a Christian, and I'm a Christian when I wake up in the morning, when I go to sleep in the night. Every conversation I have, I'm a Christian, and it's gonna spill out of me because it's in me. So when I'm talking about any subject, because I talk about any subject, I'm gonna talk about it with that that mindset, with those rules. Think on things as lovely, good report. Now, it may not, the way I say it may not be the most politically correct way to say things, but I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna give my thoughts on it. I'm gonna write it in poems. I have wrote things in poems, and I'm gonna try to give the way I interpret we should look at it as Christians. So if I talk about abortion or something in that light, I'm gonna talk about it in how I feel, but how my feelings align with the word. Now, now when it comes to limits, like I say the N word. I have people that's very close to me don't like that I say the N word, but sometimes I say it in poems because I feel like it needs to be said. I don't think, and I don't like to be censored. I think Christ will censor me, and He will tell me what I need to say and not to say. And then other than that, I just kind of rock with it. The Holy Ghost, He rock with me every day. So He gonna rock with me with my poems too. So if He gotta tell me that, like, that's too far, whatever, that's the only guideline I have. But I'm willing to talk about anything.
I pretty much feel the same way. When it comes to me, I didn't start writing poetry, period, until it was from a Christian perspective. Like I can't think of one quote unquote secular piece I've ever written. But as far as the limits go, I don't think that there is any, because it's so much that happens just in our own world that we have to address. Like we are called to address. So I feel like Dufay said, it might have to be shaped a certain way, but I don't think it's nothing that we as Christians should, I guess, feel afraid or restricted from speaking about, because that's just an area that we don't minister to.
I mean, some people take it too far.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like sex in the park.
Yeah. Will
gotcha.
you give me an 8-minute sex poem as a Christian? I'm cool on
that's not.
You keep your 8-minute sex poem for your spouse.
That's a
But
lot.
what if they don't got a spouse though?
Y'all out
I mean,
here.
here's the thing.
Man, look.
Trees
It's
just
not
out
my-
here.
It's not my job to police what other people do. I found that and I'm not gonna lie, we see things every single day, but it's not my job to police what people do. Now, what you do have the choice of doing is choosing whether or not you'll support that,
Right.
and support can look a whole lot of ways. And at the same time, one thing that I've always learned, just growing up or whatever, is consider the source, man. Sometimes people give too much attention to things, people, entities, whatever you want to call it, that you really don't need to. Like when I find something that I give my energy to, I try to. I don't do it all the time, but I try to now. Is not waste my time, because I can make more money, but I can't make more time. And sometimes it's some things and people and stuff and mess that it's just not worth it. However, conversations do end up happening because, come on, y'all, we all Christian poets, and we've been at that event where something crazy happens, and you like, whoa. So for me, if I'm with my friends or whatever, the group chat, that's the time. And then after that, it's like, if something reminds me of it, cool. But do I need to address that person or check them or say something? No, and no. It's just a waste. And then sometimes, some things you learn what to do, and then some things you learn what not to do.
And you learn that you could be an example too. Because
Yeah,
if we on our game and we have our content, then people can look at us and be like, oh, maybe I was wilding a little bit.
True.
I ain't here for everybody to look at to see if I'm sorry if I'm wilding or not. You ain't me, and I'm not you. Do what you gonna do, and I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I think.
What do you think?
Rock what you rock. I'm gonna write what you write. I may not like it, but it may be for somebody. Maybe somebody need it. You know what I'm saying? So you write what you write. I might judge you in my mind. But you write what you write. And then on the flip end, just try to do it to the best of your ability. So if you write about sex, it don't gotta be right on the nose of he entered me and you know what I'm saying. Throw some innuendos and metaphors and do it nicely.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to feel uncomfortable, and I don't want
Right.
like at our first show, we talked about homosexuality. We talked about gender identification, and we talked about it in the light of Christ. And we didn't know at the time, but in our front row of our show, it's 300 people in our show. It's a transgender person. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't know.
No.
They wasn't offended. You know what I'm saying? Like, what'd you say?
Slight flex.
Slight
but
flex,
it was
but
sold out.
We
didn't even know
Sold
there was
out
a movie.
first
Yeah,
show.
you know what I'm saying? It was a lot of people in that boy, But
Triggered it.
definitely, I feel like, so you don't have to be, I mean, and that goes into like how you write, but you don't have to be directly on the nose or overtly offensive
Right.
to get your point across.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I actually write so people, when they have a discussion with me afterwards about a piece, they have to ask me about like, what do I believe?
Right.
Cause I troll a lot in life, except for when I get on stage. Besides Japanese denim, and so, yeah, I just feel like if I'm gonna do a love poem, I got a poem where I say the N word like 7 times, but I feel like I do it in a way where people gonna say, I know this man is a Christian, but I don't think he's misrepresenting Christ in doing this.
No.
Yeah, I think for the limits, when we're talking about like when Corzetta was talking about like you don't have to curse or when you're trying to change your audience and you don't have to be overly offensive, like that shows your creativity when you don't have to do that in order to keep your audience. And I think that's my only limit is don't limit yourself to those things because you're not really showing your art. You just trying to get that reaction.
So this brings us to our next topic. One of the staples of the collective is homie court. And for those of you who don't know it, we didn't make up homie court ourselves. This is a thing that a lot of people do. But homie court is when a friend of yours has they have an offense that just betrays the level of friendship that you have. And so each week,
That's a very peculiar way of putting it.
That's exactly what it is.
I mean, no,
though.
some people you wouldn't. Some people can offend you the way somebody else has offended you, but you wouldn't take them to homie court because y'all ain't there.
Oh, I
Y'all
got
not
it.
cool.
And I think at some point everybody in the collective has been to homie court.
Except for me.
I beat my case. I'm free out here in the streets.
Case was not the word I thought she was about to say. I don't know why. I don't know why. That was weird.
Where we
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So we got.
I've never been
so
to homie court. This is Corzetta Renee again. Just so we're.
I feel like you've been to homie court.
I
though.
have not. I have
feel
not.
Like, charges was brought up, but you might not have.
Yeah,
I don't
we
know
might not
if
have-
charges
Wait.
were brought.
So you skipped your case?
Yeah.
What
No.
case was it?
I,
He
there
out
was
on bond.
okay.
Dang.
Okay. Okay.
Have-
For
have
those of you
charges?
listening, if we want to choose a side, what were my charges?
I don't remember. I just
Exactly because they did not exist.
I don't remember
She
how
must have had a good lawyer.
Or
I remember.
I
a couple
didn't
of
do
your cases.
anything.
Oh, I remember,
I remember
all
my
of his
cases.
cases.
Dang.
I remember your case.
Or
We're
I
not gonna
didn't
get
You
into
do
had
mine.
the first homie court case.
I beat a
man.
Of the
case.
collective.
We beat a case.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't beat that case.
We
Yes,
did
we
beat the
did. We
case.
did beat that case.
Y'all did not beat that case when y'all sent me on that show with that creepy guy.
No.
No.
It's a different case. Never mind.
That was a different case.
We'll talk
It's
about
a whole
that.
different case.
So each week we want to talk about a homie courtable offense, and just talk about because we got some people who not on the podcast who have made these offenses many a time. So this week, the first offense we want to talk about is whenever your friend give you some encouragement or information, like they got insider info that leads you to shoot your shot, and it crash and burns.
Well, I'll start this one off since it's close to my heart. Yeah, I have a friend, not to be named.
It ain't like he a worship leader or nothing.
Yeah, I got a friend who's not to be named. He gave me this little pep talk. Was telling me like, bro, she interested. She wants you. She just scared. And I was like, I'm pretty good at being aware of these things, and I don't think so. He was like, listen, bro, she knows somebody that I know, and she told him. And I was like, what did she tell him? She's like, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. I was like, you sure? And he was like, man, I'm telling you, dog. Go ahead. It's y'all gonna look real good together. And I shot my shot. Not only did I shoot my shot, yo, I shot my shot with the mindset that, oh, she's scared. So even if I shoot my shot, it might be just like, it might be some rejection because she's scared. So like, I didn't even shoot my shot with like, I didn't shoot my shot with like, you know, I shot it with confidence. You know how Sanaa Lathan leave her arm up? You know what I'm saying? After she shot it, I left my arm up, dog. I left my arm, that follow through up. And I was like, I got this. I just leave it out here. And I had my arm up. And it was still up there for a while. And then, like,
I was there.
Like
The way he sold it, I thought I had a shot.
Yeah. Like I'm like, yo, it's in the bag. It was so much in the bag. I'm like, oh, I'll shoot it when I want to shoot it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo,
She on your time.
I'm gonna shoot it on my time. So I shot it, and I got the soft rejection, and I'm like, she's scared.
Confirmation.
Okay.
No humility.
Yeah, like she's scared. It's okay. I'll wait. You know what I'm saying? So we were cool, and I shot it again, and like I got
Did you
that.
leave your arm
long-
up that time
I
too?
left it up.
So you shot it, got the rebound, and then put it back up.
Yeah, bro.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? And this time she came with all the force of the block, and she sent me that long little text message, but she didn't. She was like,
It's not
"You
true,
didn't
man.
get it. You didn't get it the first time." So she followed up the text message with a song, which was the song was kind of confusing because it was the Avant "We Can't Be Friends" song. Anybody know that song?
That's
Deborah
Cox.
Cox.
Deborah Cox. It's
Yeah.
Deborah Cox and
But that
Avant,
was I'm
right?
Still in Love with You. No, that was RL and Deborah Cox.
Yeah.
Oh, Ariel and Deborah Cox,
Yeah.
we can't be friends. She was like, "Yeah." Let me tell you how she did it though. She was like, "Yeah, this song about us, except the good part. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
She was like, yeah. I'm saying, like, if you shoot your shot again, we won't be friends.
Oh my god.
I was like, oh, back it up. So I immediately turned to the person that set this up.
Mm-hmm.
The thing was, it was great because it didn't hurt me too bad because
Of course, that is still recovering.
oh, it didn't hurt me too bad because I don't know, this situation didn't hurt me. Like I wasn't super hurt by it, but it was. I was more angry. Like, bro,
Mm-hmm.
you said I was on a fast break. You didn't call out the pick. You didn't do nothing. You didn't say Tayshaun was behind me for the block. You didn't say nothing, dog. You just let me get destroyed out here. And yeah, we went to court. I won that court case.
Absolutely.
With this particular person, he has committed this offense numerous times.
Oh, he a habitual offender.
He is a habitual offender with this.
Okay, so then my question is, why do y'all fall for it?
Man, no, it ain't ever happen again.
And then he just move on to a new person.
Yeah, it ain't gonna ever happen.
But do y'all all know
Right,
about
y'all
each
all
other?
know.
No, not all the time.
Okay.
And sometimes he does it in secret.
Oh, you know what? The crazy thing about it is,
secret
okay,
offender.
listen, he did it one time. And my man actually finessed it. And the dude that was with it, he's married now.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, we took the person to homie court because he did it on multiple occasions, and we was like, bro, why do you keep doing this? Like, what is wrong with you?
What is in your
You
heart?
know, like, what's wrong with you? And he was like, man, I be just seeing stuff work. I'm like, you can't.
But you
Get
don't
it.
see nothing work.
Get your
Because
eyes checked. Just get
Well,
your
the
eyes
thing
checked.
is, I
His
think
prophetic is off.
I was just
No,
about
the
to say,
thing
false
is,
prophets.
that person got married to the girl he set him up with.
So he
The
won
thing is,
one
It was
time.
issues.
It
was
had nothing
issues.
to do with the assistant.
Yeah,
Like, nothing to do with him.
exactly.
So he didn't have nothing to do with the setup.
But
he
he
didn't
takes
have-
that credit.
He take the credit.
Oh no.
So, but he went to homie court for that too because he messed that up too. He was just messing everything
But so
why
some,
is this still y'all?
But no,
never mind.
some of the relationships work out, but it be in spite of his effort. But he take it like, no, it wouldn't have happened without me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And so it empowers him to keep.
So
trying.
did he plead guilty or not guilty?
Bro, every time he played not guilty. Like we like, bro,
I
like
mean,
what?
who goes and pleads guilty?
Some
Sometimes-
people do.
sometimes when you
I mean, when
always-
it's a situation like that, when you've continuously messed up relationships,
But
or
he's
the
a
lack
repeat
thereof,
offender,
He is
meaning
a
he
repeat
sees
offender.
no
He's
fault
in
in his
denial.
actions.
They shooting outside.
It was very quick. His trial was very quick. His everything was very quick.
Shout out to Baby Zone.
Yeah, he definitely sorry, the baby crying. The baby's crying.
We gonna move the baby.
Yeah, so
Relocate the baby.
Yeah, we gotta relocate the baby.
it's completely and totally fine. I am happily in a relationship that he had nothing to do with.
Hey.
You know what I'm saying? And I just, I thank God that that shot did not work. You know what I'm saying? But it hurt. It hurt.
So what was his sentence?
Yeah,
I
what's
forget.
what's
I
the
forget.
sentence for these homie court
Oh,
charges?
I don't
It
remember.
varies.
See,
Yeah, it
that's
do
why
vary. I
he keep
don't
doing
remember.
it because y'all didn't
No.
put a good enough
So because he
sentence in
takes
there.
credit for what's not his, and it empowers him.
Yeah, but see, if you give him the right sentence, he won't want to be a
Fam.
repeat offender.
Right.
Y'all
He
know-
not going back to the
We ain't saying
pit.
names, but y'all know who we talking about.
Yeah.
That's beside the point.
So
The thing is,
y'all know how he.
the thing is, no matter what happens,
You're right.
no
You're
matter
right.
what happens, even though the sentence that we may give may not be bad, but you know how they say things come around. Things be coming around. So
Oh. Okay.
so like no shots, no nothing. But sometimes when you set somebody up to get rejected and you get rejected, it's like, bro, you should have saw this coming.
Yep,
You had to set
So
up.
maybe the sentence should have been eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and y'all set him
That's
up with
that,
somebody.
but
That's-
that's
no, that's
terrible.
hurtful.
Why would we do that?
Yeah, you
we
can't do
still
that
I
to
mean,
your
we
friends.
gotta
friends.
learn his lesson.
Yeah, we
The
still
Bible
friends.
says.
You can't do that to your friends.
What it say?
It's-
What it say?
But what did Jesus say though?
Here's the thing. He said, I've heard it before that it was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, love your neighbor as yourself. Would you want somebody to do what that person did to you? What that person did to you? I was going to say that name.
We trying to get him.
It's not eye for eye and tooth for tooth.
I get that.
I'd be saved all the time.
Listen, I know, but he got to be stopped.
She from Saginaw, y'all, so.
First of all,
that's all that is.
First of all, no, I'm just playing.
We're not about to start with the location slander.
I actually had a similar offense committed to me last summer, and it was a progression of the whole collective.
Wait.
Whoa!
Thank you.
Because that's what we won't do
right now.
That's what we won't do.
No, let me explain it.
He been stacking the clip to this one.
Hold on. It went from don't do it.
Exactly.
Y'all might as well do it.
Because
that's
when you sit
hold on, let me.
Okay, we'll let you entry.
I
didn't even know.
Despite our nose, you said yes.
Oh yeah, I did. I did go to home court for that.
I didn't go, and I'm not going.
I didn't go, and I won't go because I said no.
We're not doing home court. I just said I've been through this situation where I was chilling, and I gave people the reasons why I was chilling, and then all I heard was, "Wine, don't mess this up. Wine, if you blow this, we're gonna be upset. Don't mess up the collective." Then the straw, because I was still chilling, but then I'm not naming names. There was a gesture that was gonna be made in my honor, and I was hearing it, and I was like, "God, this might be the one." So
you was hearing it from where?
I picked up that phone
because you said you were like, "God, this might be the one." God didn't say.
No.
I just want clarity.
No. After I got this bit of information, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my time to shine." So I was like J.R. Smith with the ball in my hand.
Oh, J.R. Smith, that's the wrong person.
Hey, look. Oh, look. So I shot this shot. I immediately text Brittany and said, "This ain't gonna work." Even before I got a response, I was like, this ain't gonna work. I should have kept this in the tuck. And it crashed and burned, and
But listen, I don't think we're going to homie court. We cannot go to homie court for that.
It's not even a homie court offense.
It's not because
simply because you were told no several times. I know I said no. I'm a mama.
Not
I know
only-
these things.
No, but
it wasn't no might have. I said no.
Not only was he
I
said
no.
Not only was he told no, but there were meetings. There were private meetings.
You soldier boy now? You soldier? Y'all see how quick you got that? Like,
everybody, y'all look so cute together.
That's afterward though. Like a whole 2 months had passed. At the beginning, it was like
that's when there was cuddles on the couch and in the chair.
Oh,
okay. And I was like,
White Castles.
That's how I found out that my note wasn't listened to.
All I said.
That's how I found out that my note was not adhered to.
I had a game plan in my mind, and I got
your mind.
Different encouragements and
there is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is what?
Destruction.
Oh, listen, okay. There is a law called perjury.
Okay.
And
walk it down.
When you lie under oath,
you
gotta go to court. So let's take Juan to homie court.
Hold on. Wait. What just happened? This ain't even a case. We just recapping some events.
Oh, it ain't a case where you gotta go to court.
You go ahead.
Hey, no, look.
You are held in contempt of homie court. How about that?
I do my day in court, but not for this because
not on no podcast. We gotta bring names and Bibles. And we gotta bring timestamps. I got pictures, boy.
No,
I got pictures
evidence
from IHOP and Leo's, and I'm like,
evidence.
Collective, what's going on?
I got pictures from my house.
Yeah, like what's going here? What's going on here? Then it went to.
I was confused.
Then it went to very much. It went to like, okay, don't mess this up. But it was first like, what is going on here?
Exactly.
Dang.
For several reasons that we will not discuss on air. But we will discuss it as soon as we're off.
This is going to mess up the collective. That was unanimous.
Then it went. We got a whole podcast.
Haughty.
You see how God works?
In spite of us?
He's a redeemer.
Come on.
That's grace.
Wow.
It's
Come
grace.
on.
All things working.
No.
We gonna go there?
No.
We gonna take it there?
All right. That's what happened when we tried to bind out of revenge. You don't get invited to a trip, and then you end up in a fake relationship for 3 months.
What?
Wait.
What?
Next time, invite y'all friends to the zoo.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was.
Dang.
That's exactly what it was. Oh.
All right, I plead guilty. It's actually, I think Dufae needs to plead guilty too. I feel like we co-defendants and we both gotta plead guilty.
You a grown man.
Wait, their whole story just
Hey,
changed.
if you had
The
that
whole
attitude
story
in
just
check, we
changed.
wouldn't have been here.
No, look. Just because you didn't get an invite to the zoo, that don't make you jump into a relationship.
Right.
Or
I'm still saying
what
that.
had to look like a relationship.
We were going on a double date. I don't know how
And
y'all
then
was
we made it-
offended
then
about
we
a
made it
double
a
date.
triple.
We was worried about the single date y'all was trying to plan. That's what we was
Right,
worried
right.
about.
You didn't plan this single date trip out of spite for a double
Yeah,
date
bro.
trip.
I'm like, this
Hey,
don't
look,
sound right.
hey, look, that boy went from, okay, we ain't going to the zoo. Let's go to Chicago. You know what? Forget Chicago. International trips.
We going to Niagara Falls while y'all in Toledo at the little zoo. That's what
The little zoo.
The little zoo. Let the hate flow through you.
That's truth. It's truth in that.
truth for truth.
Truth for
Truth or
truth.
truth?
All right, so for our last segment, so there's rejection that happens, right? And this came up in the fellas group chat, although we ain't gonna take too much time for it. But there's a joy that happens when you get to return the rejection on the person who rejected you. Or is that just
Who
something?
agreed to this?
Who agreed to what? Say this topic?
Yes.
Girl, you didn't check the group chat. This
you didn't.
topic went in the group chat.
It was in
But
there.
it looked like somebody said it was petty. I didn't know that we were going with the petty.
We're petty.
If you stay petty, you ain't gotta get petty.
Wow. Okay. Go right
You
ahead.
want to sit this one out?
Reject on. Rejector.
So you don't, you ain't never rejected,
Rejectee.
but then you get to return the rejection, and it's like, I slap my veins for those who don't.
See, I
get
don't
the
know.
visual.
Back
Go!
no
Here
straight
come
back
the
to me.
humble. Here come the humble. I ain't
Back
never
no straight
been
back to
rejected.
me. I'm
Right.
not, no, I've been rejected. But what's not about to happen is you about to come back to me later. Go on and get your little,
So-
what's that, 80-20?
that's what it's
Go
about.
ahead,
That's
that's
what we
your
talking about.
20.
That's what we
That's
talking
what
about.
we're talking
That's
about.
what
That's
it's
a
talking about.
returning the rejection.
Yes,
Yeah,
It
they
is.
come back.
they come back and shoot they shine. You be like, no,
I'm straight.
and then you get that satisfaction of like, I was the last rejecter.
Okay, y'all gonna hate me for this because we've literally had arguments at the man shit about my feelings. I feel bad. Like I feel so bad when
Now, mind you, listeners, this is the same person that said
I
things
just said-
should be an eye for an eye.
I said when I was about to
Just
say a
wanted to
name.
throw that in there.
I was about to say that it was just for that particular person. But I feel bad. Like I'm like, oh, they so sad. And like I'm living my best life. And now like they like
I just like when whatever they did go for is not on my level. Hey.
I mean,
Like
we
if
can
they're a
throw 'em.
little more
It's never
facially challenged
never
or
gonna be on our
if,
level.
you know.
I try to make everybody jealous. So
Mhm.
what?
Wow.
intentionally.
Huh?
Intentionally.
Yeah.
What?
Uh-huh.
Who has time?
I mean, like, look, like,
You
like
know that-
100%.
not that
I
it's
want,
wrong,
I
but who
want,
has time?
like,
Right.
I want my girl, like, I want the way I treat my girlfriend or my wife or whatever to make people be like, dang, I missed out on that.
oh yeah, I see.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
already got one.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that happens.
Yeah,
in
I
life.
know.
This
No.
is what sparked this conversation. Because we
I
was
know.
noticing a lot of people started doubling back when they see we was out in these streets.
They was like, oh, wait, what's going on now?
Consistent text message.
Yeah, it was just, so, you know, you it come back around. Now, the thing about that is, this is not connected to my other story. It's
Disclaimer.
not at all,
For
literally.
clarification.
But I am a hard believer in you gonna die with your decisions.
That's the
Preach.
rules.
That's
That's
so.
the rules.
If you did reject me, and you know, and the Lord didn't prick my heart to
Wait.
say, take this person back,
Wait.
you gonna get rejected, and you gonna
The
die
Lord
with the decision.
didn't prick my
Yeah,
heart.
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying. I'm just letting you know. I'm just 100% like, oh, you know, you're lost.
And I love it
I'm
when,
always a your lost type person. Cause listen,
but that's beautiful. And I love it when they know They know what type of time you on, so they don't even shoot the shot, but they do everything but shoot the shot.
Like they'll start giving you compliments on how good of a mother you are, even though they rejected you because you was a mama. And then they'll start giving you compliments. Oh my goodness, your family is so beautiful. It looks like you have an amazing marriage. I do.
And you alone.
But I hit him with the humbug, like, thank you. God bless you. But in my head, I'll be like, that's why you're miserable right now.
That's
the only reason.
That pride.
They always come back. So we poets, right? So my thing is, when I give somebody like a birthday card, I give a birthday card. Like, I'm writing in the side of the card, and that was annoying to somebody. Do y'all know somebody sent me a picture of that card like 4 years later? Like, oh, you always used to write me such long messages.
He was dipped off into his Drake
The
bag.
stuff they annoyed, they get annoyed with. They be missing. Like, now my new girl, she don't write me nothing. She put LOL. She don't even put no words.
Everything
I'm
is
so
K.
cold with it.
HBD.
I'll put the new girl in the Instagram story, but make it so only you can see it. Can't nobody else see this but you. You think I'm out here flourishing? Nah.
Petty.
Now it works. I'm like, dang, why are you really out here, bro? I didn't even know Instagram had an ability to do that.
They do.
That's
share it with a person.
I don't really do that. Listen,
Now
I
we
don't
don't
really,
know. We will never know.
We won't
He
We have no way to
about to
check.
get some calls when this drop. So let me see your version of your story.
Uh-oh.
You might
Snitched
have
on
to put
yourself.
that edit point. No, I'm gonna leave it in because I'm real.
Truth or
True
truth?
for truth.
Truth or
For
truth?
All right, so we are wrapping up each show with a poetry breakdown of one of our poems. And so we are going to go through the poems. We're gonna stop and react on some parts that we feel like is cool for us.
Is link in the bio?
Yeah, we'll put the link in the bio
To the YouTube.
to the YouTube. So this week's poem, because I wanted to get a poem where it was all of us. So this week's poem is Pure Imagination.
Oh,
Anybody
God.
want to do the setup for how this poem came to be before we go through this breakdown?
Without the what's the name? Without the actual reveal? You want to do it? Or you want to just talk about the whole poem?
So remember how we
No.
said
Okay, so-
earlier in the podcast that 2017 was a year and we lost a whole bunch of things and people in 2017, and that carried over into 2018. And then you have Pure Imagination.
Well, it goes. No, it goes back further than
What?
that.
Okay. I'll go ahead.
So
and
I
take
just
the
want to
lead on
want
this.
to add that folks just pause the podcast right now, watch Pure Imagination, then come back and finish the rest of the podcast.
It's on
Okay.
our YouTube channel. The YouTube is Collective Verite.
It's in the link below.
The link in the below.
It's already in the bio.
Yeah,
but
point-
we appreciate
Point
you.
to the below though, even though we
Speak.
ain't got the visuals.
We ain't got the
It's
visuals,
unspoken.
but it's down below.
Oh, but
So
That's what
this
she
is
said.
what it really
Oh, but-
came from,
but-
in my.
where did they pause? Did they? We don't know if they paused.
We
Yes,
Okay.
they
We
just told me to
ain't
call.
got- Make
Bro,
sure
but
you
before,
edit that
all right,
out.
before y'all pause, I
Or
don't know
let
if y'all
them know
paused
it's
already.
Dufay.
Before y'all pause,
Podcast Kings.
what is it called? Trigger alert.
Oh,
Trigger
yeah.
warning.
Trigger
Hashtag trigger
warning,
warning.
yeah.
Trigger
Yeah.
warning.
Hey, look, it don't matter what poem we do it.
Hashtag trigger
Just
warning.
trigger warning.
Facts.
All right, Corzette.
So
I'm
listen,
sorry.
this is what really happened. We have all shared our lives with one another. Some things are obviously inevitable for us to know just because, like, if parents aren't there, or relationship breakdowns, or the way you grew up. So we decided that we wanted to write from a perspective of everything being perfect. Like, if the parents were here, if death didn't happen, if life didn't happen, if the way we grew up didn't happen. And so we decided to refer to our resident, I won't say genius, but he has a way with words that some of us don't have. We all have our different way with words. So we all deferred to Juan. We gave him our stories. We didn't even tell him like the downside. We told him the upside. Like, this would be the perfect life. And so we wrote that way, and that's what the piece was about. However, truth or truth comes out in the end, and reality sets in. Like, all of that stuff that you just heard,
Fake
that was just
news.
pure imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the reality, and my imagination was running away with me, and this is real life.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Breakdown really good. Because it was.
Come on and clap for me from the background, husband.
That was
That
crazy.
was the son.
Oh, that was my son. Listen, if y'all know me, y'all know we love Dukes. That's the homie for
Friend of the
sure.
collective.
Friend of the collective,
Friend of the collective.
Nah, he is like a part of the collective,
basically.
basically.
Breakdown?
I got a big throne seat.
Year. This poem also features Ashley Moss and Gil Goldman on the vocals.
They did a really great job setting the tone.
They were traumatized. That's in the video.
Oh, we're just talking about each other.
I didn't know that. I never heard that before.
Go ahead. I said you fake.
You see, I got the, you see, I got a nice sweater on or something. With this sweater on.
I had brunch with my parents the other day.
My father and I got caught up in talks of war films.
My mother asked, when is the last time I had one of them good naps? One of them ain't a problem in the world kind of naps.
My mama hummed this song under her breath.
And Dad annoyingly mumbled the words in my ear.
And this is always my favorite moment with them.
So, immediately we set the crowd up. I felt bad at this point because the crowd is so happy.
They're so
They are.
happy. They're like, wow, that is such a nice life. Like they're into it. And
I
I
smiling
said the
faces.
same thing.
Yeah.
I was like, man, we sound super happy.
Yeah.
The part that gets me is listening to the playback of the video. Like, I can hear people reacting. And they're laughing. Like, they are so with us.
The funny part to me is I ain't never had brunch with my parents.
Right.
This day or no other day.
Man.
But here's the funny:
Never.
the people who knew us in the crowd, like
They
I
were
had
like,
friends who was
"What?"
like,
Yeah.
from that moment, they was like, nah,
It's not gonna be good.
yeah, let me prep my heart.
Look, my dad was in the audience. Can't think of the last time I had
So-
brunch with him.
This is important because your dad is the only person in the poem who was in the audience.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking at him the whole poem.
Hmm.
Did he bring the fur this time?
He did not wear the fur this time.
He had no reaction. He was there like, yep.
He wasn't betraying
Yep.
nothing.
He did not give the secret away.
My parents didn't portray anything that night.
Wow.
Okay.
Leave it to
Okay.
Brittany to be
Let-
the darkest
let's
poet.
get
I mean,
back
can
to
we
the
get
poem.
through the poem
Just
though?
so we know.
My mother was the loudest at my preschool, high school, and college graduation.
They about to laugh.
Each time she wore the same thing. The smile she gave to me on my birthday that made my father stop in his tracks. Dad and I would cackle and joke, and each room grew jealous of our stand-up routine for two. Mom and I had Tuesday talks about prayer and hair. There were meetings to negotiate my teenage rebellion in there. They told me that God's spirit was entreating each cell, and self-decision was destruction absent of wisdom on Sundays. I watched Mom as she poured out God's heart with precision. Now we both walk in her shoes and preach just as she envisioned. I see my children with their grandchildren. I think love ages better than most things. I grew up listening to them teach school on how to keep peace and instruct on how to keep promises. They still have so much to teach me. I still look forward to Tuesday nights or comedy hours. They still hold me dear like grass does flowers. Oh, what a wonderful life.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's really sad. The funny thing, or not funny thing is that Juan wrote each of our stanzas, but we all had opportunity to edit it. And I was looking at it like, man, this not sad enough. So I went back and I rewrote it. It it's rough right now, like listening to it, but I lost both of my parents, and so I'm pretty young to have lost both of my parents. So you have this life when you're a kid, and you just think that they're always gonna be there, and they're not. And so all you have is your imagination. Like that's all you can do. Like you see other people with their parents and things like that. And like that was my frame of reference. Like, oh, like well they get to go with their mom shopping, or their parents are at their college graduation, or even at high school graduation. So it's yeah.
So is there a particular moment in the stanza that sticks out to you most?
The the particular moment is actually at the beginning, like talking about those life moments that meant the most to me, and like she wasn't there, and even my college graduation, like neither of them were there, and I think that was a setup for the audience, because even the people in the audience knew that by the time I hit that first line, they knew that it was a rap and that this was not real at all. But just for them, like we were talking about, the audience saying that it was sad, but us having to live it, I think that helped me portray that to the people that I knew in the audience. Like, hey, like I lived this. Like it's sad, but this is what I want you to know about me. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about Pure Imagination, that people get to see us outside of just artists and as people. Like, hey, this is our life.
Sure. Yeah, let's jump back into this.
And Mom, there were nights where I tried to trace the steps of your love and mirror what I adored. How you spoke of each child as if we were scriptures, a treasure cove of brilliance. And you pour love into each and every moment, as if you knew the world was the death curse, and your love fortified us from dark wizards. Plus Dad sacrificed and served like it was addiction. How he'd hum his favorite Motown tunes in the kitchen. Sometimes he'd help you prepare the meals and even clean the dishes. He taught us to never be controlled by anything but our faith in God, and that family was this gravitational pull that we were gifted with through the harsh times. Oh, what a wonderful life.
Transparent moment for everybody listening. I used to have a really bad habit of lying. Like when I really came back to God, I was like, this is one of the things I need you to help me with: fornication and lying.
Oh, that just got real.
And no, just being real. But I remember like going to school all the time, just kind of lying about what was happening in my house. And it's funny because this is the first time that I think I've publicly talked about it, and I don't know whether it was more difficult for me because of fear of what they would think, or whether it was more difficult because it forced me to be honest out loud. And so now I have this thing where it's funny, this is called Truth or Truth, but I have this thing where, like, if somebody lies on me or something like that, or says I did, or says something I didn't do, I try to go out of my way to prove it. And like, I know that that's not the thing to do now, but I guess because I'm like, no, I'm different. Like, I made it out of this. It's just one of those things that I always try to defend my truth. And so just listening back to it right now, I'm like, sheesh, I see why I was lying, because the truth is terrible. And not just blaming it on that, you know. If you get a habit of doing something, you do it for everything. But that was the first thing I thought about when it went off. But go ahead with your question, sir.
So, I'll just take a portion of it. As one of your reflections leading into the show, you talked about just listening to the pure imagination version of your life and how it actually just is the life that you live right now. You're just not the child in it. So having that comparison of wanting something, but then being able to manifest it for yourself and your children, like what does that mean for you?
For me, it's huge. Like you hear a lot of times about generational curses and things like that. And I'll be honest, there are moments where I see some of my family kind of like in some of the same cycles. Uh, Even some things like that I've done that were a part of those generational curses, but God has been like really, really, really blessing me to break them. And for me, this is the one truth that I came out of pure imagination with is that God is so real. Like everything you hear about Him being capable of changing and doing anything, as much as you go through new levels of difficulties, that piece reminds me that he's capable of anything. And so, like now that I do have a husband that legit has no rhythm but his own, that'll dance with me. That he does help me clean the dishes, that he does help me take care of our children, that he does help me do like everything. You couldn't have told me. Marriage was nothing that I wanted. Children was nothing that I wanted growing up. I'm like, I'm good. I will ruin a child if in my mind. I'll wreck a marriage. I don't know how to be no wife, and I definitely don't know how to treat a husband. So for me, I think that was my biggest takeaway. Like, man, I'm I really am living this thing now. So for me, it's like it's nothing that anybody can tell me that God can't do, especially when it comes to changing people.
Absolutely. And so I do want to say this before we go to the other stanzas. So I was tasked with doing the main writings, and people had to come in and do touch ups and rewrites or whatever. And like we know each other's story, but we also were specific in what type of imaginations we wanted. But there were still moments uh, that was added just from things that I knew about you all's life, and I tried to do it in the most tasteful way possible, but still like true. Um, and so there are certain lines that are written in almost every stanza.
Disrespectful. That are very disrespectful. They're not really disrespectful. They just they like, wow, bro. They wow.
Yeah.
Like that line. Explain that line. Can't you explain that line?
Which one?
He sacrificed and served as if.
Oh yeah. So like the line about my dad sacrificing and serving as if it were addiction. Um, the true part of it is that like I mean he was always working, but he was never like really active. Like he was there, but he wasn't really present. And my dad, for a majority of my life growing up, was on drugs, and so that was his addiction. That was the reason why we couldn't do certain things, or certain times he just wouldn't be there. It gets a lot deeper, but it's like that you're commanded from God to forgive and all of those things, but then sometimes you'll look at it like this shouldn't have been your choice. This shouldn't have been my life. Mm-hmm. So his bigger sacrifices were sacrificing, time with his kids and doing stuff that he could have done with us because he did have that addiction, which changed how my mom did a lot of things too. So yeah, that line was like super. I don't even want to say disrespectful, but it's just real. Mm-hmm. And if anybody feels like your truth or that truth is disrespectful, like everybody else said, like imagine living it. What do you call that? Mm-hmm. Like if that's disrespect to talk about it, what do you call the fact that I had to live it?
Right.
Yeah. He even put a line in my we had Tuesday talks about prayer and hair, and I text him like, Juan, did you know my mom was a hairstylist and owned her own hair salon? And the prayer part got me because everybody tells me about the legacy that my mom had, like as a preacher and an intercessor and things like that, and how I'm walking in it. But I don't have that reference. They have the reference and I don't. Mm-hmm. And that the fact that he captured that and he captured those moments in each stanza was amazing, like heartbreaking, but amazing.
When I say disrespectful, I meant like nasty. Like,
No.
Yeah, we know what you mean.
like, oh my
Oh,
But
they
I
goodness,
know
what
how
you
that's
people
a-
interpret it
Yeah,
because
that-
they don't know.
yeah,
like
that's a
so I
nasty.
say that
line.
if it wasn't y'all and it was somebody else's life and I wrote that about them, I can understand them being like, "Yo, fam, like we ain't even there."
Too far.
Yeah.
Too far.
But
Yeah.
we were given the task to write our truth and like what we a change. All right, let's go to this next stanza.
You know, my parents just got through celebrating 32 years of marriage. At the dinner, my aunt gave this moving speech before kissing her husband of 30 years, and me and my cousins and my siblings, we all professed that we were raised by a love only God can teach. We built bonds forged through years of good wisdom. Each achievement was merely a reason for us to love out loud. Each day, this opportunity to tell our nephews and nieces that you were raised by folk not easily broken. And after the event, I asked my dad what he thought of the family he made, and he said, "Son, I've made nothing. I just took care of the gifts. I just prayed to God that he make you all fireproof or give me the strength to bend flames. And when both became true, I just thanked him like, oh, what a wonderful life."
Okay, so Juan, before you say a word,
Okay.
you didn't tell me the story of your dad when you asked that question.
Mhm.
If you don't mind me saying,
For sure, you can.
when you asked him about leaving and why he wasn't there, and his response to you, which if you care to share, you can. But now I know that, and then listening to that, I'm like, whoa, that's heavy.
Yeah. So the story. One day, me and my dad was talking about why he didn't raise his kids, and his answer that he gives is that he made a covenant with God that God would take care of us. So he left us in the hands of God and didn't have to parent. And so that's why that's why I do I just prayed to God. He give me the strength to be in flames and you all become fireproof. So my pure imagination was the hardest for me to write out of everybody's because I didn't think I had clarity in what I wanted to write, and you all had gave me clear like directions on what you wanted. And so I went through this whole like butterfly effect, like, oh, if my parents are together, then that means my aunt didn't raise me, and me and my cousins don't have that sibling bond, and me and my aunt wouldn't have that paternal bond. But then I'm like, but I can't just make it that she raises me because then I don't live with my mom. I don't have that time with my siblings or my stepdad or anything like that. And for the longest time, like even up until this week, I still was like, man, I didn't even really give an imagination. But listening to the stanza, I think the thing that I want most is to just have it all and not lose nothing. And so that's why, like, everybody else's is very insular of like a domestic family, and I bring a lot of people into it because a lot of people just mean the world to me. And so I couldn't rewrite life without any of them. And so that's why my imagination is like that. Any questions, comments, or concern? All right, so we're about to move on to the next. I also cut Danita off in the live performance. She's supposed to go after Corzetta, and I didn't know where I was supposed to go, so I said,
So you just wait.
I said, yo, my bad.
And I just went with it like, oh, okay, this is happening.
We all did. I didn't even realize that.
I remembered that I was supposed to go after Brittany, so I was like,
That's all I'll be
okay.
trying to figure out who is before me.
Mm-hmm.
That's always I'm trying to do, like, who is before me, so I know when they stop, I gotta go.
Yep.
And they
You know, when I was 8, I used to watch my mom dance her fingers through her hair. And the bathroom became this parade of twists and butters and curling creams, and she would play music the entire time. This one day, she caught me stargazing at her, and so she stopped and she said, "Baby, don't you know that yours works the same?" And she taught me all of her magic. And my dad, he would shuffle past and try to small talk his way into our conversations of two, but she would just laugh at him and close the door and say, "Baby, get you a man who always wants to spend time with you. He'll tally the seconds that you're away, and one day, those scratches will become poetry."
my dad would write me poetry. It was his artsy way of combining our dinner conversations and the new things that he learned about me. My favorite piece was called My Daughter. She's sarcastic, and I'm sure her mother mused her that way. For his last birthday, I baked him a cake just the way that she taught me. And he blew out his candles and he wished for endless days with his kids and his bride, these puffball jukeboxes. He took a bite of his last slice and said, "Oh, what a wonderful life." So first of all, my dad don't even eat cake. That's not a thing that he does.
The smallest thing on there.
No. So
that's the whole imagination. I've been trying to get him to eat cake all his life.
No, like my dad, I say that to say my dad doesn't eat cake. My dad doesn't celebrate holidays. He doesn't celebrate birthdays, none of that. And he's not a Jehovah's Witness or anything like that, because I saw you gearing up, Juan. He's not.
I was.
Ready.
He was ready. But like my dad is very much the type of man where he is not emotional, he's not sentimental, he doesn't do much reflection in life at all. So like
we saw.
Shut up, Juan. What's the question?
You gotta break down your imagination first.
Oh, okay. So where to start? First of all, okay. So at 8, my mom had been gone for 4 years, and I was living with my grandparents. So I was with neither of my parents at that age.
When was she gone then?
My mom died. That was my first poem on the show. She committed suicide when I was 4. So, like, there was never any conversations of us doing hair or how to pick a mate or anything like that. Like, that just wasn't a thing. I actually have never had that conversation with anybody who raised me. It was never this is what you should look for, these are red flags, things like that. The other part, my favorite part, is the puffball jukeboxes. When I did move with my dad, eventually, he did really, really get me into music. That's been a huge part of my life. But my mom, from what people tell me, was also very musical. She played the harp, she sang, and music was a huge part of her life. So, like, that is something that I imagine would be what we bonded about, especially with me being natural haired, curly haired. I apparently have the same, even down to the hair color that my mom had. And it's just like, yeah, that ain't real. So, what's the question?
I guess my question is, as we stated before, your dad is the only person in the poem who heard the poem.
Mm-hmm.
Did y'all have any conversations post performance?
So there was, I'll put it this way: the hardest part about that was actually the poem I was afraid of doing. Crazy as that may sound, because I knew my dad would be there, and I didn't want to. Like Brittany said a little bit earlier about the rejection thing. Like, I didn't want to make him feel bad. I didn't want him to think like him raising me wasn't enough, or I didn't appreciate it or anything like that. So short answer, no, we haven't had any post pure imagination conversations. And again, to the point of my dad not being emotional and not being sentimental, I don't think we ever will have a conversation about it, because that's just not the type of person that he is.
Do you want the conversation?
Absolutely. For sure. Like, I got questions, and I got mostly I just want to know what his perspective is and what his reasoning is, because again, like I said, when my mom died, we moved in with my grandparents, and I didn't live with my dad until I was 10. So this is 6 years after my mom died. So it's a whole like conversation around what took so long, and what was he doing in that process, or in the process of all of that. So yeah, I'd love to have that conversation and a bunch more, but YBLU, don't talk.
Yeah.
You know what I think is that question just prompted me to think like and how my family dynamic is. I think if my family ever heard the piece, there would be conversations about it. But the sadder part is I don't think that I would be a part of them. Like often they talk like in pockets, but usually not to me.
Amongst each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like some of them may or bring whatever, but 9 times out of 10, like the whole conversation will take place. I'll probably be the bad guy. um, but yeah, I thought that was a very interesting question, especially since they're all alive, but just not present, like they weren't at the show or anything.
That's how I feel about mine. I actually get indignant when I think about mine because I gave 2 years. I had a poem about y'all, and only one person got an excuse because she did, and the rest of y'all ain't hear neither one of these boys. So guess who ain't getting no more poems?
Y'all.
All right, let's go to the Bitter Podcast.
My father taught me how to tie a tie at the age of 5. On the 34th birthday that just passed, he still ties me for it. Just to go over his speech. Plus, he tells me that he enjoys my words, that I definitely got them from my mother as one of the reasons he fell in love, because her words still stops the traffic jam in his heart. He said he loves her dearly. And he will always cause her his rose because she is the centerpiece of it all. We look through photographs, making a scavenger hunt to every page. We stop on my mother and my bride. We stop on my mother and my bride. Her smile, like she was the daughter that she birthed. Like she taught her how those shoes go with that purse, and every good lesson that she learned over the joyous moments. But I look at my father in surprise. He has tears brimming in his eyes, and he sighs and he smiles and says, I wonder if I will make it to heaven, or would I just get a tent outside of the gates? If God would love me in unbreakable ways to give me paradise twice. And I hope you find that same love in your wife. And I look at my dad and say, and smile and say,
oh, what a wonderful life.
Okay. No questions. I'll break it down first. 1, that long pause was a choke. I forgot my line, but it was on an emotional line, and then somebody did say "oh" in the audience. So it was an emotional line, and they threw me off, but I forgot my line, and I was able to pick it back up and finish strong. But that was a choke. I was not getting emotional on that point. Second thing, super crazy. We're doing our podcast on May 27th. My mom passed away on May 26th, 2013. So yeah, that was rough. But I wrote the poem. My mom was best friend, and we talked about everything. And she passed away, and it's crazy because we talked about it during this poem, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure before we did this poem, or we wrote it first. We wrote it first, and then what's the name of our show? This Is Us had an episode of how the people that you have to continue your life, and the biggest moments, the people that you thought were gonna be there are not gonna be there. Biggest moment is we wrote it from the point of my wife, me being married on a wedding day, and my mom not being there. My mom in the poem, my mom being there, and it's like she never had a chance to meet my wife, which is kind of whack. You know what I'm saying? Then we also wrote it from my father's point of view. My father broke up. I mean, they didn't break up. They never got divorced. But my father was not in the home. They were married. entire life, but she moved away when I was 3, and he was not there. It's open said my dad taught me how to tie a tie. I learned how to tie a tie myself, and it was like the things I had to look for and how to find a wife, how to find love. He wasn't there to teach me, and him saying like my mom was the centerpiece of his world, and he was not. All those things played into like I had a lot of family in the room, so a lot of people that played into it because they knew it was not true. And everything. So it was greatly written. I told Juan like a few things, and he brung back all these things. I mean, I told him all these things, but the way he wrote them was really subtle. Like, oh, you won't be able to tie your tie by yourself, and you know what I'm saying, like things like that. So it was pretty dope. Questions? No questions.
I got a question. So, although you didn't get particularly emotional in the moment of the choke, there still was a level of vulnerability needed through this piece and just pieces period that as men we shy away from. So how do you find comfort not only writing from vulnerable places but then giving it to the world?
Oh, I think it's my job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think as a poet, it's my job. As a Christian, it's my job. As a man, like, even on the whole toxic masculinity and don't do this. I think that's a newer thing, and I still think we struggle with showing our true emotions and being vulnerable and talking about mental health, talking about depression, talking about crying. Now, the night before we did this poem, where we actually ran through the poem, I think everybody cried that night. Like, it was like really like, oh, we really doing this. You know what I'm saying? In the event, I think it was just so much emotions. I mean, it was so much. Let's get through this. Let's give them this piece that I tried not to let it get emotional. Got emotional. We'll get to that point in a minute. We got emotional when the audience got emotional, and when the audience really broke down, I got emotional as well. But I think it's very important to be, transparent with your feelings when you're writing. I think you owe it to like. I feel my story is not just my story. When you're a writer, a creator, your story is you living your story for other people, especially as a Christian. You're living your testimony, your story as for other people, and I feel like just writing from that point of view, giving your story, being vulnerable, being able to cry and still be a man, is very important. So,
it reminds me of the book. What book was Troy in?
Fences?
No. Like Achilles.
I don't know the book he was in.
The Odyssey.
Oh.
Or was it the follow-up to the Odyssey?
I think it was the follow-up.
It was the follow-up. Whatever that name of that book is. But Achilles throughout the whole book has this like undying rage. It's his big character flaw. Because he won't let himself process grief. And the only thing that actually brings him out of his rage and let him grieve properly is another man talking to him and saying like, I feel that way. And it just ends with them two like crying together and like it's the healing moment. So I think we need more of that from men.
What a joy to be held together by God and God's children.
And my son's not looked at as villain for being both black and boy.
A world void of unplanned Mother's Days.
And the absent black father has no context here.
A world where we didn't lose so much to
Addiction.
Or sickness.
As kids,
to stress.
Where our families weren't defined by death.
It
Was such a wonderful life.
We couldn't even blame the boy.
No family reunions or places to call home.
no hurt, babes.
Just walking out the process
Of love.
in such a wonderful life.
What a beautiful and collective truth.
Too bad it had to end like most dreams do.
A disappointing reawakening to the world.
And even the memory of the dream fades quickly. It was pure imagination.
Tuesday dinners are just leftovers from a long day at work.
And the killing spell is the only black girl magic we've ever known. pure imagination.
And now we love in a response to what we lost.
No stolen time with Dad. Just me and this twist out.
Pure imagination.
As I stand here, on my wedding day, absent my mother, I will tie this tie that I learned myself
With
Pure imagination. What a heavy collective truth.
Who's that? Which one of y'all did that?
That was me.
She's like, oh, you was crying?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
Tears streaming.
Yeah. You just hear
Embarrassingly so. I just
He was
walked
probably
off as
focused
quick as I
on-
could.
his weeping eye. Cause
No, I wasn't.
yeah, her face was. Now
I knew we had to
this
close.
was sick right here.
I closed it. So y'all walked off and I went to close it. So.
Come on,
This
baby.
was sick. Why did we do that?
Out of all of this, like, it was almost a foreshadowing event. Because the first. No, listen. Just I'm talking about the music. Because this is the crazy part.
Was it just my imagination? Was I making things up?
Just listen. I'm saying the first song is actually happy, but it sounds very sad. So it's like almost deceiving. And then like at the end, people are rocking with Just My Imagination because of its history, I guess.
Yeah, they're trying to.
But
Yeah.
They got tears in their eyes.
But it's a super sad song.
But the song itself is
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
But the first song sounds super sad, but it's really not sad.
Yeah.
So we flipped it on these boys.
And
We said all them people y'all heard,
That ain't true.
we lied.
Y'all lied.
So there is it's like it was heartbreaking for us to fake happy, but then when we actually had to be like, nah, this is really how we giving it up. The turn is so.
It's something that Danita did so well. I'm sorry, Danita did so well. Like every time I listen back to it, because when we were in practice, we was like, y'all don't make sure y'all don't turn. Be happy until we turn. And every time I listen back to it, Danita was spot on. You know what I'm saying? I was like, she stayed happy. It kept us happy, and I was like, bet we still gonna be happy. But when it turned,
when it turned, it turned.
It was two lines that like I felt with all my heart, and that was too bad it had to end like most drinks do. And unfortunately,
it's so
I feel like you hear my voice over everybody's at that point. Like for me, that was like one of the biggest lines, and then like my line, of course.
Yeah,
that's when I cried.
So even before we have the big blow where everybody crying, as soon as we say too bad it had to end like most dreams do, you hear the air come out the whole room.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
Everybody
it's
was
disappointing
disappointed. Yeah,
that we can't have what we want.
That we can't have family.
Yeah,
Just
'cause
a family unit.
Our imaginations ain't even that extravagant.
Right.
We just
It's not extreme. It's like a normal
not what
standard.
Now, but yeah, what would be normal? Just a family, hanging out with your family, and like getting ready for events and having brunch, and you know what I'm saying.
And I think for some people, they probably were like, "Oh, that is so dope," because I feel like honestly, if we would be honest in that audience, they might not have been able to identify with everything.
Right.
But some of them had some less than beautiful,
absolutely,
childhood,
Right.
adulthood situations happening too. So it was like, dang, I was pulling for them. You know how it be?
Yeah.
Like you pulling for somebody, and then
Yeah. The hard hitting line for me at the end was a disappointing reawakening to the world. I think that was my line, but for it was just like the standard line for everybody. But that was like, okay, here we go, like this,
because that's an everyday
this
occurrence.
is the unravel. Yeah.
I think another line for me, and I didn't realize how crazy like it was until we were actually in rehearsal, and Jill was like, "Did you just say the killing spell is the only black girl magic we've ever known?" And for me, I'm just so used to that being what my reality was that it didn't hit like that. And then it hit me like, my sisters have been suicidal. I have been suicidal. I've been in a psych ward because I was suicidal. And like usually Black Girl Magic is like,
oh, it's lit.
You're
Oh,
amazing.
Yeah.
But when you're not told that as a kid, and what's magnified are all of your mistakes, and that's what your parent runs to tell people. It's like, man, but I do got this Black Girl Magic, but let's just kill all that because this is where I am.
Yeah. My line, Tuesday dinners are just leftovers from a long day at work. That hit hard because when we were rehearsing it, I was like, man, like, dang, that's all I do is I work. I don't have the opportunity to like have, those conversations with my dad, like, or even like know my mom to do that. And like literally at that time, like that's all I was doing was going to work, coming home, let's do it another day, over and over and over again. Yeah.
For me, the line is with a heavy collective truth. Because I feel the weight of all of our stories, and I think it like solidifies that. It's one of the moments that solidifies that it feels like God brought us together for a reason, and I think the ending just like I think of pure imagination like a dream, and people forget that nightmares are dreams too, and not every nightmare is like the boogeyman chasing you. Some of the worst dream to have is you hit the lotto and you wake up broke. like it's almost better if somebody trying to kill you in your dream and you wake up like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Man, that's
I think like
shout out to Lisa.
Anybody that had death in their family. I was talking to somebody recently on Facebook about somebody they lost. It's one of the worst things in the world is those few seconds in the morning when you wake up and you have forgotten that the person is gone, and then you have to tell yourself again that this person is gone. Now, the thing is, if you have a sweet, beautiful dream and that person is there, and then you wake up like, this is a great day, and then you have to tell yourself this person is gone, I think that is a crusher. And sometimes and that's what I think that's what this poem did. It was that gap, in those moments, the lines that you said were that moment when you have to tell yourself, this is not true, and this is not my reality, and this is why, and I think that is what would make that poem so emotional. Also, I don't think the video shows it on the video. Where a lot of the emotion happens. A lot of emotion happens once we do the turn, but also we put rest in peace to all the people that was in the poem that passed away in the video tribute above. So a lot of the loud outbursts you hear from the audience was because people start appearing.
People were seeing people they actually lost.
Yeah, people that they lost. They appeared on the screen, and so as people start screaming, and it got really emotional. So it was really dope. I think it was a really dope poem. I think it was definitely triggered.
Yeah, no, we said we probably went too far. But it was our lives, and it was something that we thought should happen.
I did not look up. I knew if I looked up and I saw those pictures, I was like, I'm going to be done. I did not look back. I was like, I'm not about to look back.
I was so glad. I was so glad that the pictures and everything was behind us, because like we would have had to actually turn around and look and see what was going on. So
I made up in my mind. I'm like, I already ugly cried through a whole poem the first year. Y'all not gonna get me back to back.
You're not crying this time.
Yeah, no. Plus, we already all cried in rehearsal.
Right. To touch on this from a lighter artistic note, in the last part, Juan did an amazing job of incorporating the poems that we had written that were relevant to the poem, like Home, Family Reunion, Blame the Boy, Process. Like it was.
When we get bigger, they're gonna appreciate it.
Yeah, that was
appreciate it.
A
Look,
great callback.
You see the podcast started with Everybody thought wine was trash. So I've been on a mission for 2 years to solidify my spot as the one who sits on the Iron Throne. All right, so that's gonna be episode 1. Wine Snow?
You want Snow on
No, because never mind.
Yeah. Oh, no spoilers, no spoilers. So
Jon Snow ain't tough to me. I'm gonna be honest.
So okay,
Game of Thrones breakdown in the next podcast.
Let y'all know this is our initial podcast. Pilot podcast. Our podcast will be changing up every week. We might have some things that we bring back, like homie court and poem breakdown, but we may have different segments. Yep. So you guys look out. Throw some suggestions. Tell us how you liked it.
Yeah, let us know what parts y'all like the best, and send us some questions. Well, I have a question, but we'll save it for the next time.
Yeah, we gave y'all 2 hours. We'll see y'all another time. All right, so from the entirety of the collective, we are out the throne seats 5,
6.
6.
Throne seat 6.
Throne seat.
The throne seats with its seats.
Hey, so we out here. We're gonna see y'all on episode 2. Bye. Yeah. Do we do the intro music? Y'all want the intro music?
Yeah.
We want to say like truth for truth at the end.
Hey, should we end with a truth for truth question?
Or
no.
No.
It was gonna be real light.
We can do a truth for truth segment next time.
Or have like a truth for truth song or some kind of song to go out on. I like just talking at the end like this. Did you turn that boy off?
No, we talk right now. We're gonna fade this out. Y'all want to fade out?
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
I just said.